Hi, I'm Sofia Bernardi, mindset and business coach supporting ambitious new and rising coaches to master their mindset, create an aligned and profitable strategy, and grow a six-figure business and beyond using the Rising Coach method. I built a $500,000 business by the age of 24, and in this podcast, I will teach you the psychology, strategy, and energetics to do the same. Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Rising Coaches with Sofia Bernardi. I'm very excited and very grateful you're here. And today I thought I was long overdue for a podcast episode where I share my story. I obviously did that when I first started my, podcast, and I've shared my story here and there, but I thought it would be time, because there's so many new people here listening, to kind of really share my story in a little more depth. And my main intention for sharing my story is hopefully to inspire and empower you to recognize that regardless of your current situation, or regardless of your past, or regardless of how you currently feel, you can start and you can turn your life around at any point in time through making a decision, right? That's actually, at the end of the day, what it really takes. It takes making a new decision. It takes deciding to turn things around, to change your story, to transform your life, to create your new destiny. It's just an accumulation of decisions. And I hope that by sharing my story, it supports you to see that so much is possible. And there are obviously, way cooler stories out there of people that have gone from zero to this in 2 days or 2 weeks or 3 months or whatever. That's not the intention of this story to be the biggest and best story out there. It's a story. It's my story. It's my truth. It's my past on how I went from there to how I went to here where I am now. And hopefully that supports someone listening to this episode. So I'm going to walk you through the last 3 years of my life. I'm not going to go into too much depth, as I don't want to bore you or share anything that's unnecessary, but I will share with you some key components of where I was to kind of paint a picture on how much can change in such a short period of time through making different and new decisions. So with that being said, let's get into it. And if this story really resonates with you, I would love for you to take a screenshot of the episode, post it on your Instagram stories, and tag me so I know you've been here, and share it with anyone that you think might relate or feel inspired or empowered from listening to this story as well. I always appreciate you spreading the word for me. It really, really means a lot. So I'm going to start my story, sharing my journey from when I moved from Denmark back to Australia. So just for some context, I was born and raised in Australia. I lived here in South Australia until I was 16 years old. And when I turned 16, I found out that my dad had a pretty severe gambling addiction, which completely broke my family into different pieces for numerous reasons. That's a whole different, story, and also not really mine to share either. So I won't go into it too much. However, where it comes into my story is the fact that it completely changed my life. And with pretty short notice, my mum, my brother, my sister, and myself moved overseas from Australia to Denmark to be with my mum's side of the family, because we really needed to lean on that support during that time. And it was really one of the only options we had. So I had to say goodbye to my friends, my family, my school, my dog, my home, everything I knew, and move to a new culture, climate, and country on the complete other side of the world. And it was really tough. And I didn't acknowledge that for a long time, because there's obviously way worse situations out there, and I'm always going to recognize and appreciate that. And so I really suppressed this even being a big deal, because it's a first world problem really. But, upon reflection, there was actually a lot of trauma behind the situation, and it really impacted me and was very hard on me for many, many years, because I suppressed it, because I didn't deal with it, because I was young, because I didn't know how to process emotions and difficult situations that were so very much out of my control. And there's a lot more darker parts to this story that, again, I'm not going to go into, because it's, personal to my family and so forth. But just to say the least, it was a dark few years. That has no reflection on Denmark whatsoever. I actually love Denmark. I see it as, a part of who I am and a part of my life. I'm half Danish, half of my family is from Denmark. So Denmark in of itself is a beautiful country, safe country, a wonderful country. And I've got some of my best friends live there, and I loved my school and the education I got. And I'm very grateful for my time there. But that doesn't undermine the fact that it was also a very challenging few years, not because of the country, but because of the circumstances, and the way that they were navigated in my family during that time, and the way that I processed things. I didn't have, any control over my emotions during those years and things like that. So it was pretty challenging for numerous reasons. Anyways, I've eventually, after living there I think I was there for 4 years, I graduated from school after many years of stopping and starting because I needed to learn the language. I moved back to Australia on my own because that's where I wanted to be. And I moved in with my grandparents because I had nowhere else to live. My dad didn't live in South Australia, and neither did my mum, so I moved back on my own. So I lived with them, and I got a job working for my uncle at a bar, and I would, serve food and clean and things like that. And, that got me by in the beginning. But I was very lost at that time in my life. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no purpose. I lacked a lot of confidence in myself. And despite making the choice to move back to Australia and wanting to do that and being grateful for being there, it was still a big decision. It was still a hard decision. And it does, rattle you, I suppose, or your nervous system when you move countries and you make really big moves and decisions. And so I was quite lost, and I had a boyfriend at the time, and he is and was amazing and everything like that. But because of our age, being young, and the circumstances and everything, the relationship didn't work out for whatever reason, right? Just me lacking independence, lacking love for myself, that takes a toll on relationships, and just age and all of that sort of stuff. And the relationship didn't work out. And when we broke up, that completely broke me. Again, my responsibility, my ownership of my own feelings and circumstances. But it really, really broke me, not because it was a bad, breakup or relationship, but actually because it was a good relationship. And so to lose that was really, really hard for me, because it was something that I was really, really dependent and holding on to, which obviously now in hindsight, I know is not healthy to only have one source of happiness and be very dependent on something outside of yourself. But that is the reality of where I was at, where my headspace was at that time. And so, we had done long distance for a year. He was my best friend for a long time, before I even moved to Denmark. And after a year and a half of dating, then we broke up when I had moved back to Australia after, a few months of being here. And it was really, really hard on me, and I lost a lot of weight. I got into a very dark headspace. I felt even more lost, even more heartbroken and sad than ever before. And it really, really broke me. And it took me a long time to recover from that, to be honest, because of my inability to love myself and, know how to process and move through emotions. And so I was there, like, single, alone, living with my grandparents, working in a job that I'm grateful for and really supported me at the time, but, wasn't the most fulfilling out of all things. Like, I knew that wasn't my end goal, working at a bar for the rest of my life. And whilst that might be some people's, I knew that wasn't my path. And so I was very confused for quite a long time, just because my external world wasn't the way I wanted it to be. And whenever you have an expectation of your life being a certain way and it's not that, that's where suffering is created, right? When there's attachment to things being a certain way and it's not that way, it creates a lot of pain. And so I was really lost, but this breakup really forced me to sort out my shit and work on myself, because I really could not handle the pain of the emotions that I was experiencing. And so I was left with no choice but to work on myself. I started reading books because that's all I could afford and all I knew of at the beginning. And yeah, it was really tough, but that's where I started to discover, personal development and working on yourself and falling in love with yourself and the power that you actually have within you to create your own destiny. And fast forward a little bit of time, realizing my independence and starting to very slowly fall in love with myself, I still realized that I didn't know what to do with my life. And so I paid, which was a really, really big decision, to go to Tony Robbins' Unleash the Power Within 4-day in-person seminar in Sydney. And I declined the sales calls so many times. I was so scared and fearful, despite knowing I wanted to go, despite having the resources to go. I was just so scared of spending that money, of, making a big investment and a decision that I, wasn't 100% sure would work for me. But eventually I just, I knew I wanted to go, and I knew I didn't really have any other better options. So I paid the $1,000. I flew to Sydney and I went to that event, and my fucking goodness, did my world change, because it was at this event that I really let go of this breakup that I was truly struggling to let go of. I overcome some pretty significant beliefs that, I was going to be alone forever, or that was the only relationship for me, and blah, 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 blah. And I released that. I fell in love with myself through these healing modalities and processes we did. And I also found my purpose there. I realized that when I was at that event, I felt alive. I was surrounded by aligned people that I was not used to being surrounded by, people that were working on themselves, doing big things, wanting to contribute and help people with. And I realized that a lot of those people were either coaches or wanted to become a coach. And I also realized that I was at a Tony Robbins event, and Tony Robbins was a coach. And I just didn't put two and two together. But when I sort of realized that this man that I really looked up to, and, I wanted to be on stage helping people one day, I realized that was actually a possibility for me. That didn't just have to be a thing that only some people could do, but actually that anyone could do. And when I had that light bulb moment there, I realized, holy shit, this is what I want to do. I want to be a coach. I want to coach people. And of course I had so much fear and doubt, but one big key takeaway that you learn at that event is the power of investing in yourself, the power of learning from those that have the results that you have, that you want. And so because I was really ingrained with that takeaway and that message, when I realized that I wanted to become a coach, I knew that the best and next decision to make was to hire a coach to help me to become a coach. So I left that 4-day event skyrocketed with confidence and clarity for who I was and what I wanted and all of that. And I straight away invested in someone that I believed could help me to become a coach, because he himself had just done that as well and was a few steps ahead of me. And you don't need to work with the best of the best. You need to work with someone that's a few steps ahead of, that you like, that you trust, that you relate to, and that you believe can support you. That's all that matters. And obviously being in your price range is, important, and them teaching in a way that aligns with you is also important, and all of those sorts of things. But I didn't overthink it at all. I just knew this person. I just trusted it. I didn't do much research. I just wanted to make a fucking decision, because I finally knew what I wanted to do with my life, and I wanted to create it. I wanted to go ahead and do that. So I invested in him. I think it was like $3,000 at the time. I was so nervous, but I did it. And he taught me the first steps and those foundational steps whilst doing inner work on myself to start my business. There was so much fear. I was so scared. I felt like I was taking one step forwards, two steps back, because of the fear and the doubt and the mindset blocks that I was experiencing. And I felt like every single month in my business, I was starting again in so much fear of, will this month work? Will I sign any clients? Will I make money? Will it be better than last month? And so forth. And it's just this mind battle for quite a long time. And to top it all off, when I finally got things going in my business, the global pandemic hit. So at this point in my story, it was, March 2020. And because I went to that event in September 2019. End of September. So by the time I sort of got started and things like that, it was now March 2020. And social media was, a very dark and uncertain place. The whole world was freaking the fuck out. Do not get me started on that. And everything was just very scary and uncertain. And, at this time, by this point, like by the time I had gone to that event, it was like before that and during that and after that for quite some time, I was working 5 different jobs. I was no longer working at that bar for my uncle. I was working numerous different jobs. I feel like I'm skipping and missing a few little bits here, so apologies if I go back and forth, but I was, cleaning floors of rich people's fucking houses. I was walking their dogs. I was cooking their food. I was babysitting for several different families after school. I was working at a cafe in the mornings. I was working for a hospitality company, late at night or weekends, like doing weddings and events and things like that. And I was just working a lot. I was really, really working a lot. I also trained for a half marathon. When I started working on myself, what really supported me to move through this breakup and things like that was like setting goals and changing my life and getting out of my comfort zone and doing big things. I started traveling a lot, and I went to America, I went to New Zealand, I went back to Denmark for, a little holiday, and I traveled around Europe, and I went places in Australia. Like, I started traveling a lot, I started running a lot, exercising a lot, I started boxing, all of these sorts of things. And I got really fit and really healthy, and I met some really cool people, and I was, but I was really busy, and I found myself like putting off my business quite a lot. Just, in hindsight, I now know I was subconsciously like avoiding the really uncomfortable stuff, but I was really doing a lot of things, and I was finally happy, but experiencing huge amounts of fear in my whole first year in business, to be honest. So it was really tough, but I started to get some momentum. I ran a free challenge that I just decided I wanted to do in my Facebook group, because there was so much negativity on social media due to the pandemic that I thought I would create a safe, positive place. So I ran a challenge. I signed some clients from that, even though I had no idea what I was doing. I doubted myself. I was afraid of the sales calls and everything, but I started taking steps forwards and just really trying and leaning into that discomfort, as scary as it was. So that was kind of my first year in business. It was very up and down, so much fear, so much risk, so much investing in myself, but slowly starting to make momentum. If you're looking to run impactful online challenges and events to grow your business, then I quickly want to talk to you about my new free offer, the 58K Launch Playbook. Come behind the scenes and see an insight to the content, the breakdown, the results, and the learnings from a recent successful event I ran that made me over $58,000. In this playbook, I will take you through the event outline. So I'll show you how I plan and organize my launches for success each month. You'll see a breakdown of my title, type of event, outline, outcome desire, dates, and more. You'll also receive the event content calendar. I take you behind the scenes of my exact content calendar for this entire launch that you can plug and play in your own business. The event results and stats. I share the exact figures, conversion rates, and signups I received throughout this launch, so you know exactly how much was made and where it came from. And you'll also receive the event evaluation, which personally I find to be the most valuable out of this playbook. Here I break down what worked overall, what didn't, and what I will do next time based on my experience, struggles, and results. Learn from my mistakes so you don't have to. Head to the link in the description to download your free copy now. My second year in business is where a lot more momentum was created. This is where I reached my first six figures in business, and really had discovered a strategy that felt the most fulfilling and financially rewarding, which was running challenges and events. And I was running free events, and I was doing them back to back, and I was learning from each and every single one of them and making my way through. And it was here that I really started to reach my first consistent 10K months. And then I jumped straight away in quantum leap to 20K months, 30K months, 40K months. It was really, really cool. And I was just super grateful. And I slowly started to leave all of these jobs that I had, very slowly. So I'm kind of grateful in hindsight that I had lots of jobs as opposed to one full-time job, because I could slowly just step away from some of them because they were all casual positions, and so I didn't have to go from 100 to 0 in terms of like just leaving all of my employment as I grew my business. But then I slowly started to realize that I could make a lot more money by leveraging that time in my business than I could from working for anyone else. Like it would take me, working back to back 3 jobs a day, hospitality, babysitting, hospitality again, working over 60 hours a week, barely having time for anything else and burning myself out a little bit, from just working so much and making a maximum of $4,000 in a month to being able to make, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in a month, doing what I loved, working a whole lot less and a lot harder on my body, or less hard, should I say, than all those other jobs. So I started to very quickly start to say no to all of these other jobs, which wasn't easy. I wasn't good at saying no. I wasn't good at turning down money, but I had to keep focusing on the fact that I'm actually opening the doors to make more money by leaning into my dream. Then in year 3, which was, last year, I was scaling, I was actually learning how to keep up with the growth. I got up to $80,000 per month in my business. There was constant shifts and evolving and supporting more and more clients. I went from, having a solid handful of clients to over 80 clients across my programs. And I was, experimenting with different strategies, but I kept coming back to challenges and events being, the most enjoyable and most scalable. And I started to really, really master them like never before. And that's where I was able to jump to those 80K months. And here in this year, I really learned the importance and the power of simplicity, of scalability and sustainability in my decisions. Not just doing everything and anything like I was going to burn myself out. Like it was important that I simplified what I was doing at this point and mastered what I was doing. So if that relates to any of you, you're doing all the things, trying to figure it out, it was in year 3 in business that I realized that less is actually more. It just took me a lot of action taking and conditioning and peeling back those layers to recognize that. And now today I've generated well and truly over $500,000 in my business since day one. It would be 600,000 or 700,000 at this point. And I'm honestly using one strategy at this point. I'm only ever selling one offer at a time. I've only got one target audience and I use one mindset and energy practice. I'm not doing all of the things. I'm not overwhelming myself. I'm not overcomplicating the process. I've been through many phases of doing that. I've tried lots of things. I've tried DMing. I've dabbled in ads. I've tried Facebook groups. I've tried, organic marketing strategies, TikTok, Reels, Instagram, carousels. I've tried hiring certain people to do certain things, and the thing that feels the best is the easiest, that gets me the most results, impacts the most people, and that I have the most fun doing is running challenges and events. And it just took me 3 years to kind of really, really tap into realizing that is enough, and that's actually the best use of my time and my energy, and that is now what I focus on. So I hope that with me sharing my story with you, you kind of realize that business is a shit show. It's an up and down mess. There's a lot going on. But if you keep going, if you never give up, if you go all in on your dreams, if you trust yourself, if you back yourself, if you invest in yourself, you trust those that have walked before you and have the results that you want, and you're not afraid of making those big investments and leaps, and you believe that everything you invest actually comes back to you tenfold and so much more, that's when you're going to be able to leap and grow and rise as a coach. And because I backed myself in every decision, I took self-responsibility. I never gave up. I've gone through lots of tough moments, hard moments, things that felt very, very scary, uncomfortable. I've made, decisions that, cost me tens of thousands of dollars. I've made decisions that, broke my heart, that scared me, that petrified me, things that made me feel rejected and hurt. And all of these things, I've experienced all of them. And you've got to keep going. This is why you've got to have the support and the mentorship. And when you fucking back yourself, even when it makes no sense to do so, and you just trust, and more trust, that's where you can go from whatever your current reality is to whatever it is you want to create. And I'm telling you how much I had so much lack of belief in myself in the beginning, so much fear and doubt, so many triggers, and they continue to come, and it's just, they don't really go away. It just is packaged differently, right? But I had all of that, and I'm telling you, if I can go from working 5 jobs around the clock, lacking belief in myself, not believing that what other people had created in their business and life was possible for me, to really starting to have all of that and so much more, if I can do that, so can you. And I need you to believe me on that. Hope this is a kind of pep talk for you, that if you're doubting yourself, if you're in fear, if you're questioning everything, I guarantee you, if you trust, if you go all in, if you take action, if you back yourself fully, you can and you will create the business and the life that you truly deserve and desire, that you did not believe was possible for you, right? But that belief will become everything, and that's what you need to work on and develop that belief and make decisions from that belief. But you've got to work towards that. You've got to create that. You've got to keep going. You've got to show up even when you don't believe that. And that's actually how you create that belief, right? So I hope that this episode has shared with you and maybe inspired or empowered you in some shape or form. Or maybe you know someone who it will, where if I can do it, so can you. Because I really just want that to be the takeaway message, that I went from being a hospitality worker, unfulfilled, surrounded by not the best people that don't really care about people being happy and fulfilled, to, having a $500,000 coaching business. I did it in 3 years. I started during the global pandemic. I've got my dream boyfriend. My health is improving every day. I'm surrounded by the best people ever. I've honestly got a clear calendar. My calendar is so clear each week, because of the way I've designed my business, because of my business model, my programs, and because of the strategy that I have. It allows me to have a very scalable process and do the things I love and spend time with the people I love and all of that. So I hope that this is a story for you to hold on to and anchor into in those tough moments where you're lacking clarity, you're lacking consistent results, you're lacking momentum, you're lacking confidence. I want you to trust. I want you to go all in, and I would fucking love to support you if what I've said and who I am aligns with you in any shape or form. Just come message me, or even better, book a free clarity call with me. The link is in the show notes. Book a call with me. We'll see which program, if any, are best for you, and if we are a match for each other, and we can go from there, because I just want to see more coaches rise, to be honest. So that is my story, from hospitality worker to a $500,000 business coach in 3 years. And by the way, I didn't start off as a business coach. I should keep that in mind. I started off as a mindset coach for women building confidence in themselves, because you've got to start somewhere. You've got to start with what you know, with what you're good at, and what you've actually experienced and overcome. And at the time, that's all I knew. I wasn't perfect on it, but I was a few steps ahead of other people, and I could therefore teach it. And now, I'm a business and mindset coach, because mindset is one of the biggest parts of business, but I'm able to actually teach business coaching because I've consistently generated the results that I know that new and rising coaches desire, and what so many coaches never reach and are unable to reach because they're missing so many key factors. So if this has resonated and supported you in any ways to just start, to grow, to rise, to go all in, to back yourself, then I hope that is what you do. All my love, and I'll speak to you in next week's episode. Bye. Are you ready to create aligned, scalable results in your coaching or service-based business? If so, I'd love to work with you. I support my clients through my signature programs, Rise to Coach, which is for new coaches or service providers wanting to sign their first clients, and Rise to 6, the mastermind to scale to consistent $10,000